Hey, good afternoon, class. Thanks for joining for my discussion of Group 7. And so for this, I went with question number 1, the Alzheimer's patient. Because this could very easily occur for any of us at any time, in this scenario, our natural instinct as humans is to defend ourselves if we're being attacked. We know the nursing code of ethics and that we are committed to non-maleficence, or in other words, to do no harm. Therefore, fighting is a no-can-do with the patient, right? In the scenario, the confused patient, he's an Alzheimer's confused patient. He strikes the caregiver, and then the nurse basically fights back. Caregiver busts the guy's nose, breaks it, and the caregiver fights back. It's committing an intentional tort here known as battery. And so battery is any harmful or offensive touching without consent or emergency, according to our textbook. Legally speaking, battery is considered a crime and is punishable via the court systems. And according to the West Virginia Code 61-210B, this can result in fines ranging from $500 to $2,000 and or up to 5 years in prison. And so workers' compensation, we all know what that is. That's insurance coverage that we all have some knowledge about. And if someone is injured doing their job, they'll file a claim, and their employer is mandated to cover all those expenses related to the said claim. And that's according to our textbooks. And so I decided to contact my facilities employee health department about the situation that we have here. And they tell me that the nurse in this scenario would be responsible for reporting the incident and filing their claim within as early as possible. But the EH representative states that once the claim reports have been filed, a third party, or I assume our insurance group, would then decide if the nurse would receive those benefits. And in this case, the nurse is likely to receive workers' compensation that is owed to them. However, the family of the patient has the option to file criminal charges against this nurse. And then from there, the court legal systems decide punishment up to and including probable termination of employment. And to clarify potential punishment, I attempted to contact our West Virginia Board of Nursing, and unfortunately, they were unable to help me. No one was available to speak to me about the topic. But as we learned in Chapter 5 with the issues of malpractice, patients have the right to feel safe and the right to respectful care and the right to make decisions about the plans of their care. And the part that complicates things here is that patients are also expected to be respectful to the staff as well. And the unfortunate part of the scenario is that this patient having Alzheimer's disease was very likely not acting on their own volition. They could have simply been scared and reactive. We do this thing long enough, nursing long enough, and we're likely going to come across this type of scenario at some point. And part of the patient's right to receiving respectful, safe care is that the caregivers need to have proper training to be able to deal with situations like these when they occur. And Judith Arnett's professor of public health services, I want to make sure I get this right, at Wayne State University School of Medicine, she tells us that, I like this phrase, she says, education, quote unquote, is where prevention starts. I 100% agree with that. And as nurses, we need to be aware of these types of situations that may carry a higher risk of potential violence. And then much like I heard this analogy recently, like a mechanic with their toolbox, we want to make sure we have the right tools in there to be able to reach for, or in this case, the right words to say or the actions in order to try to prevent a violent situation from occurring. And we know that all instances of violence toward healthcare workers cannot be prevented. It's just part of it. But with effective policies and procedures, minimization can be achieved. And also, as previously mentioned, the patients and family have the right to file charges against any healthcare worker organization that causes harm or injury. It's difficult to say what the outcome would be in this scenario. But the last question to consider is how the nurse would have responded to protect him or her. Now, in this situation, I'm unsure if we're talking about the nurse or the patient in this situation. But the answer for me is for both of those is this. The only thing that the nurse should have done, in my opinion, was the minimum that it takes to get away from the patient, and then separate themselves and then leave the room, right? Broken nose and all, don't hit back, don't push back, don't fight back, just leave the room. And then the nurse's reactivity, what happened there is that they have the repercussions with the legal system that they now have to deal with. And then also ethically, even though our instinct is to defend ourselves, we have the responsibility to these patients to do no harm. And I think that's where the entire problem lies for me. I can live with a fixed nose, and my job can handle giving me some compensation, but living with the guilt of knowing that I've injured a patient, especially someone who may not know what they're doing, that guilt never leaves. So thanks for listening. Have a great day.